Hello, Tyler.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. It's Tuesday.
It is Tuesday. Tuesdays with Tyler. It's so fun.
It is. Today we're going to talk about something that I think is really entertaining. You have a whiteboard that,
I have multiple whiteboards, yeah.
yes, multiple whiteboards that you keep track of things on as a visual aid to kind of monitor the pulse of loan fur. I would love for you to share, why you started doing that. First of all, like, why did you start the whiteboard?
Sure. Yeah, it's a couple of reasons when it initially started and it's evolved, but I'm kind of operating under the train of thought that if I leave it in my mind for very long, it probably won't happen. And so I try to write things down or get things out of my mind the minute I think of them, or whether they're a thought, whether they're an inspiration, whether they're a to-do or a task or an input to a meeting or whatever. And so I've got the Asana app on my phone, and I'm always creating tasks for myself to remind myself. But if I'm near a whiteboard, so I have one like hanging in my garage where I work out and all that kind of stuff. I've got one in my office. I've got a portable one that's like upstairs near our kitchen. Super weird. It's not a big portable one, so don't think I'm just this weird guy. You can think I'm weird, but it's not a portable one. But it's literally was just like offload stuff, like get it out of my brain, because oftentimes if it's in my brain, I'll mull it over a long time. Maybe I'm not meant to think about it a lot, but I'll think about it a lot, or I'll just like, it'll get bogged down and I won't think about it again. So that's like the main thing that was started with the whiteboards. And then it evolved to, I think like 2017, end of 2017 or beginning of 2018, we had like a pretty tight time as an individual business. And so we lost a bunch of revenue from numerous clients, and it was like, oh my gosh, we have to recover quick kind of thing. And so I literally would like write down invoices that were out there that I needed to have captured by the time we ran payroll in 8 days or 2 days or whatever the time frame was. And so then I could visibly look at them, and I knew I needed to make sure I'd try to get those. So it was like constantly in my face, and then I could, erase them or cross them out or whatever. So it gave me something to do as like almost gamifying, that type of a process. And so that was the first thing maybe 3 years ago. And then now it's evolved to keeping track of things that I want to see on a regular basis. And so it's like just this visual, like when the number changes, I'll go like scrub it out with my fist and then write a new number in there or something like that. But it's been really helpful because it keeps the things that are in front of me, whether they're a business metric, whether they're a reminder if I'm freaking out about something, because that happens as a business owner, as a growing business owner. But sometimes they're even a reminder to like go, hey, you're going to be fine. This is the number we're going to look at. It's not going to go sideways, whatever. So that's kind of the evolution of it, I guess.
Awesome. I love that. Well, what kind of metrics right now do you have on your whiteboard? Yep. And why are they important?
Totally. All right. So the main one that I started with was number of payrolls. And so I keep every single time we run a payroll as a company, which we are an every 2-week company, middle of the month, end of the month. I erase the number and add another one. So, and a lot of that's because sometimes it can get stressful when you have a larger team and you have a lot of money that goes out the door to pay that team, which is super fun. I love, rewarding people and making sure they're, compensated, all that kind of stuff. Like that's not the problem. A lot of it more so is just like, it's a bigger number. And so sometimes adjusting to it causes a little bit of like anxiety. And maybe I'm the only owner that deals with that. Totally fine. But I have a number in my top corner, a little in blue, numbers in blue, and then there's a little red kind of thing around it. But right now we're at 124 payrolls. And so sometimes if I'm feeling a little anxious about payrolls next week, we have the money in the account because we've got rainy day and we're healthy that way, but sometimes it can be a little bit like anxiety. And so then I look at the number and I'm like, dude, it's really 124, we're going to go bad on 125. No, we're going to be fine, it's going to be okay, chill out. Like, so that's like my mental conversation that happens. So that's one of the numbers. I have a runway number, so I have a number of how many weeks that we could be in business if we stopped making money today number. So it's like all of the cash that we would have that's available and resources that we'd have that's available and how long we could make it. And so sometimes that's helpful too. And I started doing that at the beginning of last year. So if some of you guys remember, time of this recording, 18 months ago-ish was the beginning of a pandemic, and everyone's freaking out at the beginning of it because you're like, what is this, the end of the world? What are we doing?
Yeah.
There's just nothing, we didn't know anything. And so that was helpful for me of just like, great, how long can we make it? And so then it's just been helpful to keep that as we've been kind of hyper growth over the last like 12, 14 months. So that's one of them. I've got a little kind of, I don't know, sales pipeline health number that I kind of keep up to date. And part of that's just my own gut of where we're at and talking to you and how things sell and all those types of things. But that's helpful too, as it just kind of keeps me like, hey, that's obviously, that's like the lifeblood of the company 3 months from now, 6 months from now. And so we need to make sure that that's really healthy because I'm caring about the future now, maybe more so than I did in the past or something. So I've got that number on there, and I've got a couple other ones on there, but those are kind of the main ones that I will visibly look at on a regular basis. And that kind of, I hate to use the term, but like centers me a little bit, you know, as far as like gives me a little more peace about maybe the situation we're in, or it motivates me based on wanting that number to be different or bigger or smaller or whatever that thing that we're measuring is. So
I love that. That's awesome. You know, I'm sure that those metrics have changed, the things that you track as LoanFair has grown.
Yeah.
And even like we were talking about earlier today, you're involved in the day-to-day, but less and less.
Yeah.
So how have some of those metrics changed since LoanFair started?
Totally. Just to preface, I'm definitely involved in the day still. It just looks a lot different than it used to be. So I would love to say that I'm just, I'm on the beach all the time and it's really great. I never wear shoes, but I do still wear shoes. Even though I work at my house, I still wear shoes. Anyway, not sure how we got on that tangent. But yeah, I would say like in the early days, really you run a lot of your business based on your gut, because you're just involved in everything. So you're literally this guy selling stuff, the guy managing your books, the person servicing the work, you're involved in every different element of it. And so you can really just kind of like feel a little bit more. But then when you start being removed from certain elements, because you've got, you've brought a team in or individuals in that are managing pieces of it, it starts to change, and you have to like manage it based on numbers. You have to manage it based on metrics or things that you're looking at or trying to make sure you're reviewing on a regular basis. So that was the biggest change, is just getting from like non-gut related to metrics related, because you're trying to figure out what are those things that really tell the story of the health of the business. So honestly, I still look at a lot of the same things that I talked about earlier as far as what's on my whiteboard, but the things that change a lot more are I pay a lot more of attention to like accounts receivable, like the invoices that are out there that are open, because I'm not the one chasing them down anymore. And so I want to make sure that those are staying kind of in, we have a good beat on those. I pay a pretty close attention to our credit card statements. So making sure, because we do, you buy a lot of software as an agency, or you subscribe to a lot of things, and sometimes you're using it, then sometimes you stop using it. And so we're constantly wanting to pay attention to not just donating money to those tech companies that we're maybe not using anymore. We got the value out of them, but maybe we're just not using them because of client change or whatever. So I paid a lot of attention to that type of a thing. Like I said, the pipeline's health, for sales. And then I pay attention to like percentages of goals met. So maybe that's a revenue goal or profit goal or client NPS score goal. So I pay a lot more attention to those types of things. That's like more, again, like how do you tell the story of the health of the company across multiple departments, maybe when you're not the one that's in each of them. So I don't know if that makes sense, but.
It does. And it actually carries really well into my next question. I oftentimes hear you say, if I know that somebody else is thinking about something, then you think about it less. Maybe you don't completely stop thinking about it, but you think about it less.
Yeah.
We follow Traction, which is an EOS. And all of us on the leadership team and everybody else has a scorecard that they're, responsible for. So how can you help build, or how can you build your leadership team's accountability around their scorecard to kind of help support some of those really overarching metrics that you watch as a founder and a CEO? Yeah.
No, it's a good question. It's probably not, the entire answer is not going to be able to stick in this shorter format of interview here, but a lot of it's just planning, to be completely honest. It's planning out what you're projecting to do this quarter, this year, this month, whatever your time frame is that you're trying to measure. And then coming up with, okay, so say for instance, it's a revenue goal, we'll then back down from that, like reverse engineer how you're going to get there and break it into months or break it into weeks, or, what's the number you're trying to hit from a revenue standpoint, if it's, new sales, or if it's, resale or renewals of old contracts or previous clients. And so you're really trying to break those types of things up so that then each week the individual has a specific cell in a spreadsheet that they can plug in that number, and then you can review that with them. And so I do that with, the people that directly report to me. I know that the people that directly report to me also manage others, and they're doing a lot more of that in the last number of months as we've continued to roll it out to more employees. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of the gist of it, I suppose. I think to answer your early question is what I'm trying to kind of come up with an answer while I'm talking, but is, the things that like maybe keep me up at night or I think about a lot. It's very difficult to, like, you can assign somebody something, but it doesn't get removed from my plate really until they take it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And
Fair.
so when they take it, it means they're going to start doing things differently, maybe how they're approaching their job, or the questions that they ask, or the way in which they take ownership over a certain project or department or initiative. And so when they're doing that, then it's showing me that they're taking it. So then I think about it less. And then that oftentimes is then incorporated into their scorecard so that we check on it on a regular basis, and it's kind of in our face. So does that, I don't know if that answers your question, but that's kind of like the summaried version of it.
No, I love it. And you're totally right. You can assign somebody something, but until they take it, it's still there. So absolutely. Yeah, totally. This is super helpful.
Yeah, that's how we've grown our team, really. Is just like, what are the things that are challenges, or like, big audacious goals we have, or like, what is it going to take to get to those? And then putting the right people in the right seats to make sure that we can actually move towards those goals. So that's kind of how we built it in a nutshell, I suppose.
Absolutely awesome. Well, enjoy the rest of your day. It's good to talk to you.
Thanks. See ya.
Bye.